from there. Anyone who can tell us about his or her journey toward finding your identity? Maybe a simple question is that, do you know who you are by now? Anyone who knows his or her identity? Okay, Angel, do you know who you are now? Do you know who you are now?
Who I am now?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Let me ask. Here's the simple question. In this beautiful body of yours, do you know where you are situated inside there? Because when I ask you to say what is this, you simply say this is my arm. When I ask you what is this, you say this is my elbow, etc., etc. Which means, and I can also say, you can also say to me, this is my body, which means someone is owning the body, is owning all those parts. So do you know where this person is inside that body?
You
don't know.
Just got complicated even
Okay.
more. I don't understand.
No.
Well, how I identify myself right now.
Yeah, where are you positioned in that body of yours? Is it in the heart? Is it in the foot? Is it in the elbow? Where are you inside that body? Because when you see that body, you'll keep on claiming that this is my body, this is my arm, this is my head. Then who are you then? Where are you situated in order to claim these things?
In my head. I don't know.
It's Lindile. Let's ask Lindile. Lindile, where are you in your body? Where are you?
Where am I, sir?
Yes, where are you situated in your body? Because when you say, you tell us that, oh, this is my body, this is my arm, this is my head, this is my this is my this, then who are you and where are you situated in that body of yours?
I think so. I'm situated in my mind.
Or in the mind. So in
Yes,
other words,
because
yeah. So in other words, your brain keep the mind. Therefore, you are in the mind.
Yes, sir.
Why do you say that?
Because sometimes your body reacts. It starts in your head firstly.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's just agree that let's say it's safer to say for now we position ourselves right around our brains, which will then be given a title called the mind. So work according to that then when you work towards improving and developing your profession, so that you know exactly where you are, so that when you start to hurt your leg, you know where you are positioned in terms of that. Because you may end up losing your leg, but you are still there. You lose your heart, you donate with your heart to someone else, but you are still there. So which means there's this internal intelligence that you have that has helped you to build this particular body of yours. So your body is beautiful or handsome like this because you have the internal intelligence. So the journey we are taking now, it's a journey of working with that internal intelligence of yours so that you don't get captured by social spaces or professional spaces. So in this presentation then, I wish to start by reminding you that there is this structure of human mind that you need to remember. When you work with what you are working with what you are doing, make sure that you still remember where exactly do you draw the tools from. And remember, when we were born, we were in a situation where we were able to breathe, we were able to do all the body functions, which we call DNA. So our body function or body systems and functions are controlled by the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind. So unconscious mind, it's that natural process that is within you, which was not captured by anyone when you were few seconds after birth. You remember that you were happy there, you were jumping, you were kicking, you were laughing, you were doing whatever. But when you were doing it, you did those things, then you were able to store them within your subconscious mind. So subconscious mind was able to store all those actions. The actions that you did then were all stored as part of your subconscious mind. So that when you do those actions again, you don't even have to concentrate. So you allow your conscious mind, which is your reasoning power, to do something else while you are doing what you are doing, because we have stored all those nice tools via your subconscious mind. So when I drive from here to Durban, from where I am right now to Durban, I may only concentrate when I just start the car and do all those. But on my way, I may not even concentrate, because the subconscious mind has enough tools to help me to drive while I'm reasoning, using the conscious mind to reason. So when people now are depressed, you must know that it's because the subconscious mind is generating what they interpret as negative tools or negative action. So now how do you then solve the problem? You solve the problem by using your conscious mind to reason and understand those things, that these are the things that I was given by so and so in order to control me. Therefore, let me reason and understand. Let me test them. When you test them, you discover that no, these things are just imaginary. You were given by this particular individual in order to control you. So once you sort out the subconscious mind, that you're happy to have good habits that help you to increase your joy, increase your happiness, rather than decreasing your happiness. When it decreases your happiness, then your body will start to suffer, will start to indicate some signs of unhealthy. Then in curriculum, then remember when we deal with curriculum issues, if you master these curriculum signals, according to Koza, these are curriculum signals, or these are curriculum concepts, you may call them whatever. But remember, in teaching, in any teaching, you do talk about some issues of goals, where you talk about long-term goals, which is the aim, or short-term goals, which is the teacher's goal, which is objective, or you talk about the learner's goals, which is the outcomes. So it depends where you come from in terms of your teaching philosophy. Where the others will push their lessons using objectives, if it is content-centered or learner-centeredness. Others will push this using outcomes, if it is learner-centeredness. So you just choose and balance the equation accordingly. But if you look at these issues, all of them are familiar to you. It's just that you may not have time to read about them. But now that you are aware that we control the world, even when we publish, we draw from these concepts. So studying these concepts, these curriculum concepts, you study them well. then they will help you in your long journey of finding yourself within the frame of curriculum. And then your life, then your identity now will be shaped by this. But if you don't understand them, then the situation is that people use this concept or construct or curriculum signals to control teachers. Right now, I've already facilitated 3 workshops for 3 different districts. Now I'm going for the 4th one in KZN, which is Pinetown District. But all what I give them is these tools. I give them these tools so much that when they invite you or you're part of that district, you should be able to articulate this, because they are starting from your philosophy right through to your second major assignment. So when you have them, you understand them. If, for example, if you decide to say, let me follow a learner-centered approach. If you follow a learner-centered approach, which means you will be dealing with this issue, outcome will be part of that. But if someone asks you to say, what are the principles of that learner-centered approach that you are using, you should be able to know who is the author who identified that learner-centered approach and what are the principles or concept of learner-centered approach. So in other words, whenever you take an approach or a theory or a method, you must understand that it has some principles. To say, when I teach within the frame of competence-based curriculum, which is learner-centeredness, I should be able to know that the first thing that will be driving that will be outcomes. Because in competence-based curriculum, we are only concerned about how learners achieve the outcomes. Then as a result of that, then you'll give them some specific activities. When you give them those activities, then they will use those activities to achieve the outcomes. And then they will be able to produce their own content from everyday knowledge, because that will be open through their activities. But if you are asked to teach from performance curriculum, which is in line with CAPS, then these are some of the issues that you deal with in most cases. But you may deal with few of them, but most of like this, the summative assessment is not a choice. Definitely you need to have that. So, but then what I encourage you to do is to use the neutral one, those that are between learner-centeredness and teacher-centeredness, so that you find your identity earlier than becoming a victim of teacher-centeredness or learner-centeredness. Because when you start to find yourself now where you have a pragmatic curriculum, which is more personal to you than these other two, then you'll find that it will be difficult for you to find your way. But you can find your way very easy if you were just to start with the part that is talking about the needs that you are dealing with. So here is one of the theories that was discovered through my study in 2019, that when you deal with curriculum, these are issues that you need to deal with. So from the table, I've put them in this form of drawing so that you can see how these categories may fall. Then also I've moved from the 3 categories to 4 categories. So in other words, finding my identity for me, a long journey that I've been taking, it landed here where I have to categorize life into 3, and then you produce the 4th one, which is you there. So, but the first part that we have is when we talk about who is the learner? Who is the learner that we are teaching? Then once you know who the learner is, we may ask the learners to start to reflect, to say, okay, tell us about, if we were to teach them about meat, want to promote meat, that they must eat meat, because according to professionals, meat is healthy. According to our societies, meat make men. And then we start to say, okay, we want to teach them about meat so that we promote meat, then they eat meat. But we need to ask them first to say, who are these? What is their experience around meat? Because we may be using these people to promote meat, yet they are crippled because of the same meat. So when we ask them to write, we assess them. Surely, if they get 50, it will be really surprising, because if they are suffering because of the same meat, they should get even 0. But now, when professionals demand that we must teach them about meat, promoting meat, the content of meat, it will only be about positive thing of meat. And same thing this side, when they say we must eat meat, they will only tell us about the outcomes of meat, to say, Kize, it's a man today because he was eating meat. This side, they'll describe that, they prescribe that for us, to say, yes, the content that you need to teach for meat. But only to find that when we reflect, we tell them new stories, new identities, to say, okay, guys, meat, there are people who are allergic to meat. Therefore, let's accommodate them. Let's not promote it. Let's rather tell the audience to say, the audience should write about meat rather than writing about the strength or advantages of meat, because those who are allergic to meat, surely they don't have enough advantages to deal with this situation. So when we deal with this issue, then for me, anything that I do today, I start by asking myself, who is teaching? Then I know who is teaching. And then I ask, who is learning? And then this person who is learning must be given an opportunity to reflect and critique his or her identity. That's how now people will be able to understand what they are doing in relation to what is happening in their real world. That's why in this class we started with producing your teaching philosophy, and then we moved to say identify a certain class that you taught, and then reflect on that. So we want you to reflect there. Now that we have reflected, we have seen that reflecting, we are now saying, let's go the next step. Let's take the next step, one step forward, where you now start to ask why you do what you are doing. So this major assignment 2 is for that you re-reflect now. How you re-reflect? You reflect again, because we have already reflected. You reflect again to produce something now, naturally, something that is natural driven, something that you like, without being told by people to say, follow learner-centeredness, follow teacher-centeredness, follow this. No, that's what we want now. It's you, after reflecting, and then now you start to re-reflect. So what will happen then, your subconscious mind then will adjust and remove all those things that will discover that they are decreasing your joy. And then you keep and improve and add those that increase your joy. That's what the main aim of this process is about. So for me then, I was in the same situation as you, doing honors as well, blah, blah, blah. So all what I was doing in most cases was to follow this professional identity, where I had to listen to my teacher and reproduce what my teachers were doing in order to change behavior and pass. So learning management system was part of those processes that were taking place in different universities. So, but at the same time, when I came from home, I came from a situation where I was looking at how people do things. So how they were doing it, I was just following it to achieve certain outcomes that were there. If the outcome was to dig holes, I just had to follow them to dig holes. No matter how deep was the hole that I was digging, but the outcome was that we dig the hole. Therefore, I'm part of that community. So my membership in that community has a value. Then, in other words, I was then constructing whatever I was constructing according to the need of the society. Now, when I continued research and studying, then at PhD level, that's when I started to see that no, this is the main platform and the reflect there. And then that's why then you can see how when I publish, I bring all those things that were giving me some challenges that time. Now that you have started your journey, you will have the same thing here, that in the social identity or societal identity, it's about belief. It doesn't matter whether you can give evidence for that or what, or test it, it doesn't matter, as long as you believe and the community believe. Even if they say, let's eat grass, if the whole community believe in the grass, we'll all have to go for it, because whosoever is leading us believe in this, therefore we must also believe in that. So it's a group thing. But this side, it should be a specific profession. You follow a specific profession, which will tell you all the what content you should do, what step you should do, what action you should do. So it's about what. All these things are prescribed when you follow that professional identity. So for example, if you were to teach your students to master the content, the best way of doing it is to follow professional identity. But if you were to help your learners to acquire skills that are required by their societies or communities, then societal identity is important. But when you want to help your learners and yourself to find your own identity, which will then contribute stronger towards the societal identity and professional identity, you need to start there by remembering what was happening to you when you were born. When you were born, you were free. You were happy. But when you started to have maybe 1 year, people now will start to influence you so that you will follow them. They want to reproduce themselves through you. So you will follow them, their opinion all the way. So now, or otherwise, when you go to school, we end up following certain profession, then that profession is reproducing us, and then is advancing that profession. But when you start to say, let's step back and reflect, we see and notice that we can marry these two, combine the strength of this and the strength of this, where I'm required to follow competence-based curriculum. I know that I can do it well because I understand societal identity. When I have to teach using CAPS in South Africa, I know that I need to understand professional identity. So when I can do that, I can perform in both ways. That will mean I can be able to reflect now to say who is teaching, who is learning, and then we critique that. So when you keep on doing that years and years, you will end up finding yourself there that everything in this university is neutral. but the interpretation that are coming from that side and that side and that side may be different. Therefore, when you see people fighting, they are not fighting because they really hate each other, but it's the identity that they've taken. Maybe if someone else interprets things from the professional identity, that will be different from those who are coming from societal identity. So at the end, they will end up fighting. But now, if you understand that, to take a neutral position here to say, let me take strength of that, then you may find that you are the person who are able to help them to understand their identity and improve and adjust what they have in their subconscious mind. Because after the fight that they may have, they will be depressed. When they are depressed, then they will decrease their happiness. But in this world, you make sure that you strive for happiness all the time. You bring in tools in your subconscious mind that will increase happiness. So when you know who you are, that's when you start to increase your happiness, because you know when you are allergic to meat, you will negotiate that. When doctors say you must eat meat because meat is healthy, you will tell them straight to say, no, I'm crippled today because I was eating meat, therefore I'm allergic to meat. Is there any other thing that I can use to replace that meat? Then the doctor will guide you there. When you go to your community, when they say eat meat, you also indicate to them that I've discovered that every time after eating meat, I have a problem with my stomach. Therefore, is there any other thing that I can do in order to be part of this community and then do whatever? But if they then refuse, then you cannot die if you still want to increase your joy, because when you are suffering, your joy will decrease. It will decrease automatically. Therefore, you need to know who you are and then deal with issues from your perspectives. And again, when you deal with it from your perspective, you will see how you will deal with them, because you will be all the time, you will be stronger. So when you are stronger, and then you will start now to say, I'm helping, I am contributing. Like in my case, if you want to give me something that you don't have, no, I don't take that, because I know I'll automatically I'll decrease your happiness. So decreasing your happiness, I don't want that to come from my side. It should come from you, because you will allow the social identity or professional identity or personal identity to trouble you and decrease that. So you are the person who need to reason. Your conscious mind is there for that. Unlike animals don't have the conscious mind. They have subconscious mind and unconscious mind. That's why they call spade a spade. They don't reason to pretend and do all those things. But in your case, you have this power called conscious mind. So use the conscious mind now to find your identity within you, because inside you, there's this intelligence that has helped you to develop this big body that you have. And again, the interpretation of your body, if it is coming from outside, you may find yourself that you get depressed because you are allowing the social world to interpret, or you are allowing the professional world to interpret, because the professional identity in there, you have a criteria to say this person is bad or this person is good. But when you go to societal identity, there is no criteria there. Whosoever is leading their group will be leading that group, will have a power to say, so-and-so is handsome, and then everyone will then follow that. But if the same person is saying, so-and-so is ugly, then the whole world will follow that. The whole group will follow that. So what you do then, you manage that accordingly. So you can see then that when you look at these the curriculum concept that we indicated previously. They come in different shapes, because when you see here, when they talk about technological knowledge, they've taken the part of resource, they are talking about resources. So now, because they want to say this theory is new, they've used technological knowledge. In fact, this is coming from Schulman. Schulman identified 3 rings. The first one was content knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, and curriculum knowledge. Then the question then, when they started to critique his theory, Mushra and others started to say, no, curriculum, all these issues that we are mentioning here, the content and pedagogy, are part of curriculum. Curriculum is a big umbrella thing that accommodates every discipline or any sector in the world. Because if you go to builders will talk about a drawing, a plan for building the house. If you go to business sector, they'll tell you about a business plan. You see, you have that. So now curriculum is all those things, because curriculum is a plan for action or plan of action. So in education, then we have these many concepts that I indicated previously in the table, that they are there. And now Schulman, what these theories are normally doing, then they simply categorize them and take different concepts and position them in a new way, but they are no longer new. So nothing is new in education, but what is new is how you position it. So in this theory, then they are saying for all teachers, in order to teach, they must have knowledge of technology, which in other words, knowledge of resources. And then over and above that, teachers must have knowledge of content, must have content knowledge, which is school knowledge. They are referring to school knowledge. And then same teachers must also have knowledge of pedagogies, pedagogical knowledge. You see, they give these 3. But when you go to pedagogy, pedagogy has so many other things that include assessment, time, environment. They all these other concepts that you cannot see here, other than content and resources, are accommodated here. So you can see then these theories are not new, but it's a repetition of what has already been discovered. So in your case, then when you do your studies as well, you may develop, through your experience, you may develop a new theory. That new theory, I can tell you, it will be positioning this curriculum concept in a new way. So once you do that, then people will say it's a new theory, like what you see up there. So here you see that this is not a new theory, because if you look at professional identity, it's all about performance curriculum. If you see this societary identity, it's all about principles of competence-based curriculum. And this one is about pragmatic curriculum. What is new in terms of this theory of natural identity framework? What is new about it is that you are given, as a user of that curriculum, you are given more opportunity to reflect in order to interrogate and critique these other positions. And then after reflecting, and then you started to understand yourself, where you are and how you think, you can start to say, why am I thinking like this? Then you start to reflect again, and then you critique that again. That will help you to be in line with what we call 4th Industrial Revolution or 5th Industrial Revolution. So that's what will happen there. But all these theory, here's another theory from Anderson and others is talking about the presence, that you must have your, which is your personal identity. You must have your cognitive presence. Your presence there should be cognitive. So in other words, your conscious mind when you teach should always be with you. And then at the same time, you must bring some group, have some group that will be part of this. Here are some group, which is social presence. And you must also have professional as part of what you are doing. Then here is the professional part, which is the teaching presence. So these presents are according to this, according to what Anderson called, it's a community of inquiry theory. So when you use it, you use these three dimensions. So when you use them, they will help you to find your educational experience. These three rings produce, they will produce, when you use them, the so-called educational experience. Then in terms of causa, we have seen there, but in terms of Mushra there, these three things will produce TPEC, technological, pedagogical, content knowledge. But according to causa, you see there, they'll produce, you'll go back to your nature. You remember your nature. When you were born, you were naturally driven. You go back to that. So you fight to say, wherever you were claimed, you were influenced by professionals through school knowledge and the societary identity through everyday knowledge in your family and community, you go back and reclaim where you left your happiness. So where you left your happiness, you go and reclaim it by reflecting. And then when you do that, you would have to go to a stage where you re-reflect, critique. Then you start now to see how your life would be easy. Even your teaching will start to say now, where do I have this social presence? Where do I have the personal part of this? Where do I have the professional part of this? Then you go according to that. Here is another theory that we used at UNISA with Professor Ngubane. This one is just indicating that instructors are important. Their presence is important. But while it is important, it should be informed by students' need. Students need through self-reflection. So students must reflect in order to, so reflecting here is not good enough according to this theory. Then we have to allow UNISA students to do that in order to improve their performance. And we managed to do that because we conducted this study with Professor Ngubane, who is at UNISA. She was my first PhD student in 2013, so who graduated under my supervision. So we were then invited by UNISA now to try to help them, especially with those with disabilities. So this theory came from there to say, here is the instructor presence, and then around instructor presence, we need to have these other issues. How we support that discourses, how we select, setting the climate, selecting the content for these learners with disabilities. In fact, they were with blindness. Those were students with blindness. Then we were able to help them to improve the outcome of what they were learning. And teachers lecturers there were happy because they started to use this. And then end of last year, then they started to see how these students were performing. And then we also have Siemens and others, and then Pungos and Koza, who started to develop this now. But Siemens developed it long time ago, and then Pungos and Koza started to use this to see if this theory can help us to develop our practices. So we manage then to say, hang on, look at this. This theory, connectivism theory, is just about the principles of curriculum concept or curriculum signals that we indicated in the second slide, in the third slide there. That no, these are about that. Then we're able to identify where is community. Remember, in part of those concepts with community or grouping. So here they are putting grouping in terms of this description to say learning and knowledge rest in the diversity of opinions. You see, they are talking about group to say they must learn in group. But at the same time, they're talking about specialized notes, which is specialized knowledge, which is the concept, the content. Remember when this Hootley and others wrote about school knowledge and everyday knowledge in the book that we engaged, where we were reading chapter 7 and chapter 10. Remember that. So they were taking, so this theory is highlighting what they call specialized knowledge or school knowledge. So in this case, it's just content. And look at them again. So Siemens is also saying learning may reside in non-human appliances. That's resources. So it's clear those are resources. And again, when they go to number 4, they start to say it is critical. Capacity to know more is more critical than what is currently known. So in other words, the goal are important, your targets are important, then the process that you are doing now. So they talk about those goals. And again, nurturing and maintaining connection is needed to facilitate continual learning. That's the teacher role. The teacher role is that. And then we also have the ability to connect, to see connection between fields. It's in an environment where you can see how different fields are connecting. Because if you are, for example, you are on the Edgewood campus, you'll see that there are mathematics, there's science, there's technology, there's history, there are the fields that are different. So they are together. So when you study there, you should be able to select the one that will help you at that particular time. So the environment is allowing you to do that. Currency is the intent of connectivism learning. So in other words, here they say the up-to-date activities. So these are activities that you need to, but the timing is important. So you connect activities against time so that you keep on updating them. To say 2021 studies, current studies are from 2017 to 2022 because they should not be older than 5 years. So that's how you do it. So that when you start to claim to say, because when you start to claim and start to say, currently our education is driven by OBE, and then you cite a study that was written in 2001. You see, that is not, it was current at that particular time, but now it's no longer. Okay, Fatima, you have your hand is up there.
Hello, Professor. How are you?
How are you? Yeah.
I'm very well, thank you.
Welcome. Running late.
Yes, I'm so sorry about that. I
right.
was commuting home.
Okay.
I just wanted to find out something.
Yeah.
What if on something you cannot find find an article that's from the last 5 years? Like, give you an example. In my assignment, I spoke a little bit about the history of my subject that I teach. When I was finding articles for that subject, which spoke about the history of biology, I didn't find articles that like was from like 2017. There was only the older articles. So you put a note there and you said like use more recent articles or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But the article is but what my point was that I was trying to talk about the history of like how biology
It's all right. Yeah.
evolved or whatever the case is. So in that case, what do we do? Because
Okay. No,
yeah.
you are right, Fatim. You take that source and then you add other recent sources. How you get recent sources, you will find that some books that you use were published maybe in 2019 or 20 something, but they may not necessarily indicate biology. Maybe they may indicate life sciences or natural science, which has a biology part of it. So you can use those studies, or even if they are not directly talking about biology, because you will be the one who will be directly talking about that issue on biology. But what you will find out there are studies that are talking about natural science, or they are talking about something like that, where you find that part of that natural science, there is biology. Then you stick on that, you use that as the basis of what you are writing about. And again, if there is no study again on a certain issue that you are writing, or a latest study, for instance, there is no study that was published in 2019 or in recent years about resources, you will find that there are studies that are talking about technology. Technology and resources are related. Therefore, you take that the one that will talk about that. So, but don't expect that there will be studies that will just talk to resources straight away. Yet the world is talking about technology. So take according to the present language. So that's what you normally do. And in the books that you use for that subject, they are part of what is published, because they are used by public out there. So they are in the public domain. Therefore, you can cite them as well. That's why I was wondering, I did not see any one of you citing a book. Maybe if you're in business studies, I did not see people citing business studies book that produce content and then argue to say this content is against maybe is against what CAPS is underlining there as the specific content. But however, if you use that direction of it, it comes to that what CAPS is presenting. Yes, you can go ahead, Fatima.
Yes, Professor.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember in the last lecture, I was saying that can you please provide more guidelines, because it's so vague, it's so broad. And Itamba was trying to explain to me, and I think there was someone else also, and they managed to explain to say that the assignment is very subjective. So on this note, like, you know how you're saying nobody used the textbook. So I just wanted to like point out to you that it seems, or maybe I should just speak for myself. It seems like I don't know the ways in which we could express research and the what we can use to aid us to express our research. After doing assignment 1, I realized that as students, even though we are in the honors program, or okay, let me once again not generalize. Maybe the other students do know. Maybe they are in a better position than I am in terms of knowledge of this. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know that in a piece of research, when I'm expressing myself, I can use this, this, and this, and this. If there is no new article, I could link it and relate it to a newer articles concept, like you just explained to us. So basically what I'm saying is that, you know how dogs are colorblind, but they don't know they're colorblind. I think we're in a similar situation where we don't know what we don't know. So therefore we struggle to or I struggled with this because I don't know. That is why I suppose I asked for like a more specific guideline, but you wanted to see our unique element. But like, how would we know that this is what we can do and this is what we can't when we haven't fully developed that as yet? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what we are trying to say. Maybe let me ask you one question, Fatima. In your body, where are you situated? Where are you in your body? Because if I say to you, you'll say to me, this is my hand, this is my body. Who are you? Where are you in this body?
I don't even know if I understand that question, Professor.
You are saying, do you have a body?
Yes.
Then who are you then, if that's your body?
I think I am a collection of my mind and my thoughts.
Oh, it's your mind. It's your mind that is. So in other words, when we started this journey here today, we agreed that we are using ourselves as mind for now. So what we are developing then, because we have conscious mind, which is the reasoning power, unconscious mind, which is the one that is helping us naturally to do what we do best. And then we also have subconscious, where we store all the actions that we want to use in future. So what is happening then in education? When you are at home, when we were born, a few seconds after we were born, who told us to breathe? Who told us to move? Who told us to check hands, to do all the action? Who told us that?
No one.
But why we were doing that well? Why we were happy doing it well? Because we have our own internal intelligence. So after that, then our people around us started to influence us with new ways, with new opinions, because they wanted to reproduce themselves from us. So as a result of that, we were looking at what they were doing all the way. And then when we went to school, we were given facts to read in order to understand ourselves according to those facts, the school facts versus opinion from our families and communities. So when we come to varsity again, when we come to university, that's the space now where we are saying, let us reclaim what we had prior the influence of the society and also the professionals. So when we bring that together, how do we negotiate that? We negotiate that by reading what others have written, because they conducted these research, different forms of research, and they came up with theories that help us to unpack what the world is doing, so that we can reflect back and go back to our identities. So in our case then, the way we've structured the program is that one has to read all the articles that are loaded in the learning space, because they are talking about these curriculum issues. Whether now you want to apply those curriculum issues to history, to business studies, to mathematics, they have the same culture, but subject, because these are profession, will use those concepts according to the need of that profession. So in other words, your starting point here is to make sure that you read all the studies that have been asking you all along to read, because I've uploaded them there to read, and they are recent. They are 2022, 2021. And if you want to deal with the issue of goals, for example, there are articles there that will explain what goals are. By the time you go to your subject under that concept, you will know exactly what to do. If you have to read a book that is written by maybe a specialist in biology, which is life sciences these days, you will be able to include it, but no one will tell you, because here you are now doing your postgraduate study. So postgraduate students are applying what they accumulated from the professional identity, because remember, you were told sometimes you ended up memorizing that content to say, here's the book, you memorize in order to pass. But now when you come to postgraduate, which is honors, starting at honors level, that's where you start now to say, let me apply according to my needs. But remembering that there are studies that I need to read that will help me, so that I'll cite those to say, resources are capable of doing this and this and this. When I used them, they were able to do A, B, C, D, unlike a study by so and so, where this was like this and this and this. So the starting point is to make sure you read what is uploaded for your module. Once you are familiar with those, I can guarantee you all these curriculum concepts will be very easy to you, and you'll apply them wherever you go. In anything, in any action, you will be able to apply them. When you apply them, I can guarantee you, you will excel, because I've seen this, I've experienced in doing that. For example, when in the past years, I decided to join Ballroom and Latin American Dance Federation. So when I went there, because I knew that they were driven by social issues, they are going there to enjoy, blah, 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 something like that. So with these curriculum concepts, they were taking more of grouping, and then they were also taking more of outcomes, to say, as long as I dance and then supporters are shouting at me, that's good enough. But in my case, I said, okay, because I understand the issues of professional identity, social identity, let me be professional here. Then I started now to plan all the activities, and we did not have enough time with my couples. But what was happening there is that we only used Thursday and Tuesday, while other dancers were practicing the whole week. So when we're doing that 2 hours we had each of those days, Thursday and Tuesday, we had to use them until we finished the 2 hours. And then that training was able to help those couples to conquer the world. They were champions from 2004 up until 2018, where they started to say, no, we retire now. But they were handling everything like that. So when you go to teaching or supervising students, when I supervise students, I apply the same thing. I apply only these concepts. When I apply this concept, I have to make sure that I understand who the student is, and then the target of the student, which are goals, and what will be my role here, and then what resources do we have, and everything is going according to that. What will be the assessment that will help us to establish whether we are developing or not? Then that is helping. But students have to do their parts as well, because they have something to read. They should read what is given to them in order to develop and become ready for the task that they are engaging. So like in your case, you will have this independent research project. So what you are doing here, when you write, you put the comma, you put the full stop, you cite recent articles. You are practicing for your independent research project as well. Because if you only keep on using dated studies, you may find yourself that your examiners will just fail you to say, no, dated. Yes, it was like this in 2012, but 2022 is no longer like that. Therefore, we need recent studies to be there. But if you don't read, you may miss what is the juicy details of the course or your project. Oh, someone is shouting there. Okay, so that's the idea then, that to make your journey easy, first, go to the learning space. You read, articles are there. Articles on grouping, articles on content, articles on resources, on environment, different things. So especially in my case, when I write an article, I make sure that at least I bring most of these issues so that scholars will be able to pick them nicely. In all the articles that you may receive from my side, that were where I conducted research and published those articles, and especially these articles, I've published them in Quantal 1 journal, the highest journals or the highest top journals in the world. Therefore, those are recognized by the whole world. So when I publish them, then I publish them in such a way that I bring curriculum issues to rub them in so that the world will support whosoever is writing around education, because education, it's about this concept. So when you master this concept, they're flexible, you can move them wherever. But if, for example, if you are challenged by the difference between aims and objectives as part of the goals, surely aims and objectives or aims and outcomes, surely there it means that you did not read more on what the articles are saying, because I've uploaded those that are distinguishing between aims, outcomes, objectives, etc., etc. So in order for you to do well, then you need to read those articles. For major assignment 1 and teaching philosophy, I even produced a nice example to say, this is how you go about it. You explain this, you do this, you do this. Yes. But now for your major major assignment 2, that's where now I'm expecting you that you are reflecting now. Therefore, I don't have to give you something, a structure. You need to make a structure yourself, and then to show us that you are able to design now. Because remember, when you are invited to design a curriculum, the expectation is that because we have an honors degree, therefore you can design any curriculum. So the course that I'm asking you to design as your major assignment 2, it's part of that I'm demanding you now to show me that what is new about you from your philosophy, your critique of your practice, your experience using different concepts of curriculum. Now, what is new about you? Design a course which will be new, which will give us a pretty good idea about your new identity. That's what I'm expecting there. So part of these theories, then you'll see at the end where I'm also explaining this, how I position your task, because I deal with authentic tasks. So those tasks have some qualities. So I'll give you those qualities so that you can use them in your teaching as well, so that you open your learners to help them to find their identities through your subjects. So that's what they will have to do. So in terms of principles then of connectivism, if you decide to use connectivism in your research or in your major assignment too, when you design to say these are the issues that I will consider in designing it, you may also have this part, the last part, number 8 there, where it says decision making itself, it's a learning process. So in other words here, it's talking more about assessment, that what may be true today, it may not be true tomorrow. Therefore, understanding assessment will help us, because there's this formative assessment where we use to develop our students or our communities by asking those questions that are of formative assessment. And then there's also summative assessment, where we are now assessing them in order to grade them. So reading about all these concepts will develop you in such a way that you will find your identity and start to say, the world is simple. Happiness is simple, but it needs me to go back to my root, to what I was when I was born, and start to use these concepts that are coming from professionals and those that are coming from my community, and remove those that are decreasing my happiness. Then you'll find that when you do that, it will be easy for you. But the journey for curriculum study student, start by reading what I have in the learning space, and also watch the videos there. There are videos there that are supporting all those articles there. The articles that are there, when you read any one of them, you read and find it easier to read, because you have a video as well that is telling you about those articles. So the extension here is open. The other writer by the name of Bernstein, he will say, we are talking about subjectification, that you need to find your own subjective way, but coming through what has been published by other scholars or by other authors, then you find your way there. Because there's nothing new, but what they have there is for you to draw, understand them, you draw on them, and use them to shape your identity through your subjects. That's how you then manage this world. Okay, let's go to the next one. Connectivism is simple. It's about the eight principles, if you want to use it. And also it says that when other authors, like when we're writing this with Dr. Mpungose, we started to say, let's bring these other things around there to show that connectivism is about connecting to the world, and then your subconscious must have all these things, and then you'll cruise in whatever you are doing. Whether you jump, you'll excel in jumping. Whether you drive the car, you'll excel in that. But up until you connect to all these other resources to shape your subconscious. And then when we move, then there's Engstrom here. Engstrom is saying that one has to, when you teach, in other words, when you teach, you must have three things, understand three things. Understand your position, who are you? That's the teacher's role according to concept. Number two, you must have the content. What content are you treating as objects? And then number three, you just have to have relevant tools. Those are resources. Do you see? Engstrom is taking from these curriculum concepts as well. So if you know them, if you read them, the moment Engstrom start to say, I have actor, I have tool, I have object there, you will know that, aha, he has taken the teacher role, and then also he has resources, as well as content. Oh, thank you. Let me read only those. But they challenged him. So that's why he said, this is cultural historical activity generation 1. And then he had generation 2. Generation 2 indicated that when we teach, there are outcomes that we achieve. So in other words, we need to talk about target. Whether they are in terms of objectives, outcomes, or aims, it doesn't matter. But we need goals here. Where are the goals? So he added this one in his second generation. So activity theory or cultural historical activity theory was like this in the second generation. But in the third generation, other people started to influence it to say, no, hang on. You can only have 4. You can't have tools, you have actors, you have content, and then you have outcomes. What about people who are learning? What about learners? What about other teachers who are teaching with you? Then they brought in community. So this community involves students and any other person who is involved in the teaching. The rules here, so community then in terms of the content, the concept that we had, you remember the community is about grouping. So that who are these groups? Then they also said, but we have rules in whatever we are doing. So rules of assessment, time, they all come under this rule because there's time, there's assessment, there's this. So all these concepts are not new. So in terms of this, these were responsibilities of the community members that are highlighted here. Maybe is the only thing that we may identify as new according to this theory. But all these concepts, you know them from curriculum concept, because this one represents the content, this one represents the goals, this one represents the teacher role, and then this one represents resources or technology if you were to go to TPEC. And then you have this. So these are the concepts that you know. So the earlier you understand this concept, the earlier you read what I've uploaded there, or you also go to Google Scholar for new articles, latest articles. That's where, because if Google is not allowing you to download a certain book, you go via UKZN library, you will download it, even if it is published today. If it is open there according to Google Scholar, but is limiting users or readers, if you go via your library, you will open it and use that latest article, and then you will find that you are familiar with these things, because all these articles are talking about same thing, repeating same thing, positioning them in a new way, repeating them and put. So that new way, you will learn about it when you first give yourself a task to say, I now understand my philosophy. These are the curriculum concepts that shape my philosophy. And then when you go to your major assignment 1, you know exactly what you were doing before you knew this issue of identity. Critique it now. So when you critique it, you'll take this to your second major assignment. In your second major assignment, that's where now it's open, it's for you to subdivide accordingly. That's why I don't give you example. Because it's your last project where I'm expecting you that since you have critiqued yourself, you have started to understand your teaching philosophy, therefore this one, independent project, you do it on your own and then you get it through there. So what then is happening with these theories, most of the theories that I've highlighted here, also the theories that I use in my case, they have these characteristics. These are the theories, these are the characteristics of the theories that I normally use in supervising students, in teaching students, in training dancers to dance, in jumping, in crying, in laughing, in doing everything. I just use these characteristics of those tasks that I give. So, for example, these activities should have real world relevance. Real world relevance. In this case, I'm teaching teachers. So that all the three tasks, if you think about them well, they are talking about what you are doing out there, the real world, your real world. That's why I said your philosophy, your lesson that you taught, and also you must now design something new. What is new about what you have been doing in order to find your identity? Because you have been trying to find your identity. Now I'm expecting you that you are a new person. Where you're situated in your body, I'm not worried about that at the moment, but what I'm concerned with is that you must now show us, when you reflect, to say, this is what I am now, starting from my philosophy and that and that. So I've managed to read studies, all the studies that are in the learning management system. I watched the videos, and then I started to critique myself. Now, this is me. You design a course that will reflect your new identity. So that is called the first characteristic there, which is a task, authentic task should have real world relevance. So I'm expecting you to do the same. When you give your learners some activities or tasks, they should be authentic tasks, even if it means you are taking them from CAPS, but try to bring something that will be applicable, and then you will observe it applicable. And then same authentic task should ill-defined and include a number of sub-tasks. That is your assignment, your major assignment 2 is ill-defined. It includes subtopics, subtasks. So in other words, when you design a course will have some subtask that you need to generate. How you generate them, it's up to you, because we are giving you this ill-defined activity. The first one and the second one, I gave you some examples because they were defined, they were structured, because we were building, we were starting to find your feet. Now that you are doing the last one, you have managed to read all the articles now in the learning space. You know all these curriculum concepts, therefore, what will be a problem in designing? You'll be able to design now. The third one are complex and require students to undertake complex investigation. So much that when you do that assignment 2, major assignment 2, I'm expecting you to look for some different courses that are designed by other teachers, and then you start to build from there. Maybe in your other module, you have a course design, which is your learning guide, which is designed, for instance, by Dr. Maharaj in assessment. You look at that as well, how he designed it. Then you design yours according to that. So in such a way that you reflect back on your teaching philosophy. But that it's my aim to say you make sure that you are able to undertake this complex investigation up until you discover this, so that we see what exactly is new about you, because we've seen your philosophy, we've seen how you were teaching. Now we want to see you producing a new course, or a new lesson plan, which you can use as a template. The same task should provide opportunity for students to investigate the task from different perspectives. Yes, that's why we were discussing the issue of competence-based curriculum, that as much as you like learner-centeredness, but tell us about some issues that you can bring from performance curriculum. So there is performance curriculum, there's this competence-based curriculum. So you can come from different perspectives, or you can even go as far as taking it from personal, which is pragmatic curriculum. You design according to that. Because I've seen and I've noticed that quite a number of you managed to do that in your assignment one, and you did it well, because what others did, they started to say, I'll use constructivism. Constructivism is part of competence-based curriculum. And then they started, but when they wrote it for the first time, they just say constructivism without principles. But when I asked them to, when I sent the feedback, they started to say constructivism, and then the first principle in constructivism approach will be outcomes. I will define the outcomes for my learners. I'll give some activities, I'll give this. So when they were discussing these issues, they were able to discuss those issues with relevant recent resources, which indicated to me that they are reading well and they are finding their ways, because they even have good marks because of that, you see, where they are demonstrating that they've gone through this. So it's towards the end of the term now, or semester now, which means they've covered a lot. Therefore, they are reflecting back now to say, but others will use the progressivism. To say, I'll use progressivism. So progressivism is also part of competence-based curriculum. They were able to bring principles of those progressivism. So the improvement in most of you was really amazing, because you started now to bring this. So in other words, I'm expecting that when you go to your major assignment 2, that move of understanding this curriculum concept should then go straight to your major assignment 2, so that you produce something new, something that will give us your identity. So giving you some examples for that, I will be killing the spirit of you finding your identity and understanding your identity, because some of you may not continue with masters. Therefore, where are they going to get opportunity to interrogate their experiences and produce new ways of thinking about their teaching? Even if it means no one has ever taught like that, if you have evidence of teaching like that and is working well, push that so that the department will enjoy that moment. So don't limit yourself. So I've seen others indicating to me to say, am I going right when I do that? I said, yeah, exactly. And they were doing exactly what is expected of them, where they started to even interrogate each of those concepts and brought them together to form a certain theory to say, when I teach, which means here is the tentative theory that I'm proposing, that I'm using, taking these concepts and position them nicely, which was very good, you see. Okay, the same activities then should provide collaborative opportunity. So in other words, collaborative may come from the social, the competence-based curriculum. So when it's coming from competence-based curriculum, in competence-based curriculum, people collaborate. So with these tasks that I'm giving you, I'm open to that. That's why others decided to say, I'll take progressivism. Others say, I'll take constructivism. Others will say, take learner-centeredness. But when you do that, you must know that there are curriculum concepts that are in line with that. Then you bring those and then, but you will only know them when you read extensively the articles that I've uploaded for you in the learning management system, and listen to the videos as well, so that they'll shape you and help you all in your way. So in other words, that's the scaffolding way of doing it. So same activities should be integrated across different subject area. So it should be, so in South Africa, remember we had learning area. So it's simple, you know, when you deal with technology is part of the area, the learning area is part of maths and also also physics. So that's what is happening. Include integrated assessment. So, and I enjoyed this one. You see this one, I enjoyed it because almost all of you, you brought in the concept of assessment to say all the concept that you selected and discussed. There was this piece of assessment, and then you were able to define it well, articulated it well, and then you critique what you were doing prior to this. Then that's, I think this concept, this curriculum concept was the mostly used concept, which is good then. So in my task that I give students, I always include in assessment, how they will be assessed. Whether I supervise students or I teach, the most of the thing, the most part of this will be this so-called assessment. Because at the end of the day, how do we establish if we have learned? We establish that through assessment. Therefore, if you don't integrate assessment as part of your teaching philosophy, I think you will be really, in a way, you will not be doing justice, because one way or the other, assessment will be part of your life. And you assess people every day, you see, because when people start to talk from competence-based approach, while you are expecting them to talk from the performance curriculum, then you start to assess them there, and then you have to avoid them if they are taking the opposite. But if they are taking what you are also taking, then you continue the conversation because you will work well with them. But other than that, assessment is common in all our activities. So the other one then, the task then should yield the possible product that include more than one alteration and allow competing answers and solutions. So in your teaching then, I'm expecting you to see, when with these tasks that I've given you, the 3 of them, I'm expecting you to say, when they take you to deep rural area out there to teach there, and then people there, they expect you to use competence-based curriculum, you should be able to survive there because you know your story. So from the task that I gave you, the 3 of them, they are training you for that as well. If they take you to a well-resourced school, you should also be able to find your way there. That's what I'm expecting. So when they ask you to design a curriculum, you should be able to say, okay, I can design that thing. Okay, what are we designing it for? Is it for performance curriculum or competence-based curriculum, or is it for pragmatic curriculum? Then you start to say, I know the principles of each of these 3. Then you feature them according to what you'll see will happen, so that when this thing is happening, they'll start to say, wow, how did you do it? That's what I normally do in my case. But all what I did was to understand the curriculum concept and also conduct studies on this curriculum concept. And then I apply them in anything that I have to do so that I make sure that I excel. So excelling is based on this curriculum concept. So if you know those that are influencing you most, you just use them as your theory of action. So theories are coming from there. So all the theories that you see here are coming from scholars who were influenced to be successful because of this particular concept. So they will then use them to form a theory, to draw something that they call a theory. So nothing will stop you from doing that. When you've used those concepts in such a way that they are working well for you, you must then start to think about your own theory to say, this is where I start when I do this, this is where I go, and I always excel when I do this and this and this and this. Yeah, that's the idea of these theories. So theories are not the truth, but theories are the tools that we use to understand the truth about this world. So all theories that you have, they are not the true, they are not true up until you apply. When you apply them, they help you to understand the truth. They are not truth on their own, but it's you who make them, who use them to help you to understand the truth. To understand your identity, you need to understand what is performance curriculum with its principles, what is competence-based curriculum with its principles, what is pragmatic curriculum with its principles. When you write to show that you understand these things. If, for example, if you say, I'll take pragmatism, or maybe you say, I'll take progressivism. Progressivism, you need to understand the principles of competence-based curriculum. So when you read studies on those competence-based curriculum, then you will start to open it, because writers have written several books on that. Therefore, you may find it well. So if you were to be given a task by the Department of Education to set a national paper, they will give you this as well. They will simply say, tell us about, maybe in mathematics, for example, they will simply say, we need to see 50%, or I mean 30% of lower order questioning. Lower order questioning is referring to these two levels. So you can see the key weights there for each of those. When you create your outcomes, they expect these key weights. If you create outcomes that are at level 1, according to Bloom's taxonomy, so we are expecting you to say that learners will be able to define, they'll be able to collect, they'll be able to arrange, they'll be able to name, outline, etc., etc. That is the lowest level, which is knowledge. So why do we have two of these? This side has to do with performance curriculum, where we use nouns. But this side, we use continuous because they indicate the learning. So learning this side, teaching this side. So when this Bloom's taxonomy was originally identified by Bloom, Benjamin Bloom, it had these. But now that education moved from learner-centered, from teacher-centeredness or content-centeredness to in the 19th century, it moved to learner-centeredness. Then these are the concepts that were normally used. But today, We want both because we want to teach as we learn. Therefore, but the keywords are still the same. They're still there. You see, you have quite a number of those keywords that are indicating that. But what the department is doing, Department of Basic Education is doing then, is that they take this, when they say formal assessment, which is summative assessment, after we have covered all the content that is given there by CAPS in your subject, they may say for formal assessment, we are expecting 20%, 30% of lower order questioning. They are referring to the first bottom levels of Bloom's taxonomy. And then for middle order questioning, we are expecting 50%. And then we'll have to use these keywords to produce the 50% that is expected in terms of that national examination question paper. Then lastly, they'll talk about higher order. Higher order, they are talking about these last two. So you have different order or levels of complexity. So if they say 20%, usually here is 20%. Even if it means other subject, we say 40 middle order, 40 lower order, but higher order is always 20% because few students can think at that level. Therefore, most students will be somewhere in the middle order. So if they say 40 middle order, 40 lower order, it will be 20 higher order. And then if they say 30 lower order and 50 middle order, it will still be 20 at that higher order. Therefore, your subject, now you should know your subject, how they deal with this issue of level. So this theory then, Bloom's taxonomy, is not a theory that maybe is used for most of the thing, but it's specifically used for assessment when you assess, because you will ask your learners 30% of the lower order questioning, and then you have in that same paper, you have 50% of middle order, and then you have 20% of higher order. So when you format it like that, the Department of Education will approve your paper to say, thank you, let us go for it. Let our learners write this paper. But if there is a problem with the formula, then they'll reject it. And I've noticed that some of you did go as far as reading the formula that is prescribed by CAPS in terms of their subject, where they indicated that in our subject is 40-40, 40 lower order, 40% middle order, and 20% higher order there. So this is what I do then. I do it like this and this and this and this. I've been doing it like this, but now I am changing to this and this and this, which was good when I realized that they were aware of what CAPS is giving them, and then they work according to that. So I think then you are aware of it. So if you are not aware of it, please read the articles. Your learning management system, module learning management system has articles. It has books, recent books. It has videos that are there recorded. It also has some examples for your teaching philosophy and your major assignment 1. But for your last assignment, no, I then decided not to have